What's up, guys? This is Pink Across. I'm here with 5 more team building mistakes in Gen 9 OU designed to help you get your teams to a top level. If you missed part 1, the link will be in the description below. And remember, if you're enjoying this type of content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get right into it. Mistake number 1. Inconsistent Pokemon/sets on balance teams. Balance is a unique playstyle, where Hyper Offense has a bunch of sweepers that try to win, and Stall has a bunch of bulky Pokemon whose only goal is to wall. Balance has a mix of roles. You'll have some things that are there to wall, some things that are there to be a pivot, speed control, some things that are breakers, and it's this diversity of roles that makes it so important that every Pokemon on a balance team is consistent. If we look at this example, we have an Iron Moth here as the breaker of the team. This is a support Stealth Rock Landorus, removal Tusk, Witch Alomomola, Spikes Ting-Lu, and a Dragon Dance Dragonite. The only thing on this team that's here for the designated role of breaking is this Iron Moth, and it cannot do that at all. It may face some good matchups where it's able to break, but there are so many things that limit Iron Moth. You could face a Blissey. You could face Flash Fire Pokemon. You could face a Ting-Lu, a specially defensive Garganacl. There are so many ways in which Iron Moth can go downhill. Also, a lot of regen Pokemon on the tier switch into it easily and can scout whatever it wants to use. That's not to say it can't get kills, but it'll probably be very easy to scout, and you'll need to make a lot of predictions in a row correct to get a kill. If you want to know if a Pokemon on your team is inconsistent or not, ask yourself this. How much work is it doing in the average game? And if the opponent has something that can wall this Pokemon, am I still glad it's on the team? Some examples of really consistent Pokemon include Swords Dance Kingambit. Even though Kingambit may not sweep every time with Swords Dance, having that Dark and Steel type defensive utility is massive, and having that Sucker Punch around to stop your opponent's sweepers is great too. So even if the opponent has something to wall Kingambit, you're probably happy to have it. Another great example is Curse Garganacl. It may not sweep, but having that Ghost Resist and something that can click Salt Cure and really annoy your opponent is great to have, even if there's no chance Garganacl is going to win. Mistake number 2. Temporary items on balance teams. Before I get into this, I do want to say that there are some temporary items that work well on balanced teams, in particular Red Card and Eject Button on Regenerator Pokemon. This is partly because they have Regenerator and therefore they aren't as reliant upon recover from things like leftovers, but also these Pokemon, if you think of things like Alomomola, Amoonguss, and Toxapex, are often things on the team that we'd be absorbing a knockoff. So if something was going to use knockoff and you knew about that, you would probably go into your Regenerator Pokemon anyway, which makes a temporary item more worthwhile. In this case, though, we have a bad example of temporary item usage. Red Card Ting-Lu is not a bad Pokemon, but it fits more offensive teams better. In a case like this, you're giving up Leftovers recovery for a one-time benefit that may or may not even be very helpful. Your Ting-Lu is not going to be nearly as consistent switching in on Dragapult throughout this game as it would be if it had leftovers. If we look at Rotom Wash, Figgy Berry might be helpful against some offensive teams if you need that immediate healing, but for the most part, this is not going to be a great item to have. And if you're facing another balanced team and trying to play the long game, having items like this on Ting-Lu and Rotom Wash is really going to hurt you in that situation. Ceruledge here with Weakness Policy commits 2 sins in one, having a very inconsistent Pokemon on balance and using a temporary item. This Ceruledge only has 1 shot, and if the Weakness Policy is burned, you're not going to get that benefit again. Even though there are leftovers on Great Tusk, Choice Specs on Dragapult, and leftovers on Corviknight, due to all of these temporary items, if this balance team goes up against a bulky team, or another balance, it's probably going to end up losing because its items won't be around forever while its opponent's items will be. When building balance, I recommend staying away from Booster Energy, Berries, Focus Sash, White Herb, Power Herb, Air Balloon, Eject Button, Eject Pack, Grassy Seed, Weakness Policy, and Throat Spray. Mistake number 3, forgetting a stall-breaking core. When team building, a mistake lots of people make is focusing on patching up defensive weaknesses before establishing a solid progress-making core. That's what the person building this team did. We have a Choice Specs Dragapult, which is decently powerful, a Swords Dance Kingambit, a Zapdos, Great Tusk, Amoonguss, and Cinderace. The only thing on this team that really can pack a punch is this Dragapult, and Choice Specs Dragapult is far from unwallable, especially for bulkier teams. This team has really no way of breaking a fat team, and it's very difficult to incorporate a way to make guaranteed progress against every playstyle late in the team building process. That's why I recommend when you start building a team, focus on establishing a breaking core first, or some kind of progress making core. Whether that involves something that can hit extremely hard, like a Flame Orb Conkeldurr or a Choice Band Hoopa-Doo, or whether that's a more long-term approach like some powerful knockoff users paired with Hazard Stack and Gholdengo, make sure your team can break stall. Because if it can break stall, it can break balance, it can break offense, it can break anything. But if you don't have any way to make progress, it can be very hard to fit that in the later stages of team building when you're more constrained and have fewer options since you're forced to patch up holes on your team. Mistake number 4. Not enough pivot moves. To put it simply, prediction is hard and U-turn is easy. The main pivot moves you're going to be seeing in OU are U-turn, flip turn, volt switch, and chilly reception. Technically, parting shot and teleport are usable pivoting moves that are in the game, but due to their poor distribution, you're probably not going to end up using those. Pivoting in singles is great because it really minimizes the prediction necessary. The less you have to make reads and the more safe you can play while still maintaining an advantage in the game, the better. Pivoting moves, you can deal damage while switching out and just see what your opponent wants to do without really having to take any risks. If you're switching between Pokemon, there's a much higher chance that you get caught with your opponent switching to counter that, and every time that happens, you might be taking hazard damage, you might be putting yourself in a worse position. So generally, having pivot moves means less risk, which is a great thing in Pokemon. Most of top-level play focuses on mitigating risk. If you have a team without any pivot moves or only a couple, it's probably going to feel very clunky to play and very reliant upon making correct predictions against the opponent. If you face a team that has 3 or 4 pivot moves when you're using a team that has only 1 or 2, you're probably going to feel like you're working a lot harder than your opponent, and you're probably going to end up losing. For a team like this, it's going to feel very clunky to play, and you're going to have to switch around a lot. It still could win sometimes, but if you face a balanced team that's using a lot more pivot moves, you're going to be at a major disadvantage. I would say for balanced teams, you want to aim for maybe about 3 or 4 pivoting moves, but if you can get more, that's even better. Mistake number 5. No priority. Due to terastallization, Gen 9 is extremely chaotic, hyper-offense teams are extremely powerful, and overall unexpected situations arise more than any previous generation. Priority moves help a lot with that. You cannot possibly prepare for all the sweepers that are in the tier, so having powerful, strong priority users like Rillaboom, Dragonite, and Kingambit makes that burden a lot easier to bear. There are other priority Pokemon you can use, like Aqua Jet or Sucker Punch on Samurott Hisui, Sucker Punch Cinderace, Water Shuriken Greninja, Shadow Sneak Ceruledge, and others, but those are the big 3, Rillaboom, Dragonite, and Kingambit. By far the strongest priority available in the tier, and they really make your hyper offense matchup and general situation against random sweepers a lot better. You can't be ready for every Terra type that's going to happen, so you need to have some priority. Imagine you've got an Iron Valiant that's Swords Dancing on your team. Your answer could be a Colbur Berry, Galarian Slowking, so you confidently switch into that. What if they Terra Steel and Swords Dance again? Suddenly that plan doesn't work. What if you have a Zapdos? You go in looking to click Hurricane, and then the Valiant clicks Terra Electric and Swords Dances again. In all of these situations, you are screwed unless you have something that can outspeed using priority. And that is going to make your teams a lot more consistent, and it's going to be useful against things you can't even think of in the builder. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're interested in leveling up your battling and or team building skills, I offer one-on-one tutoring sessions, and the link to sign up is in the description. Have a great day.